Hello everyone. Welcome to Rajeshwari's Commerce and Management Study Hub. I am Rajeshwari here. Let us discuss today registration. In the previous classes of GST, we have understood meaning of GST and what is supply under GST we have understood. As a part of this chapter, we are going to cover bunch of section. That is from section starting from 22 to 30. All these sections are covered as a part of this registration. One by one, let us discuss and we'll try to understand it. Now, what is the meaning of GST? We know GST means GST is a tax of goods, service, or both. There should be goods, service, or both. And the taxable event called supply should be there. We all know when there is a goods or supply of goods or supply of services, then the GST will not be imposed. There should be a taxable event called supply should be there. Just because of these goods and services are there is a taxable event called supply is taken place, then also government will not impose the GST. There should be a supplier should be a taxable person. Who is a taxable person? You can ask, ma'am, what is the meaning of taxable person? Taxable person we have divided into two. Taxable person we have divided into two. Taxable person we have classified into two. One is already registered person. He is paying already tax, he is paying excise duty or any other taxes. He is a registered person. Another one is who is liable for registration. Who is liable for registration? When the person will become liable for registration? So that discussion we have to be covered now. In the section 22, this gives a clearly the who is a person liable for registration. Here in the section 22, we are going to understand who is registered to get the person registered, then when is required to get registered. First one, who is to get registered, and second one, when is required to get registered, and where is to get registered. These three questions answer we are going to get under section 22. Now, when the person becomes liable for registration, when the aggregate turnover when the aggregate turnover exceeds applicable threshold limit. When the aggregate turnover exceeds applicable threshold limit, then here he will be considered as a person liable for registration. And there are exempted supply. Exempted supply means it could be in the whole chapter wherever I will discuss GST. Always remember, whenever I tell exempted supply, it could be only exempted. Only exempted like alcoholic liquor for human consumption and 5 petroleum products, right? Nil rated supply, there is no rate on those products, goods and services. Non taxable supply. See, throughout the GST you have to remember, by way of notification, there is it is only exempted. Rates are nil, that is nil rated. Then when it is non taxable supply, that is exempted supplies means. Then excluding, see here we are going to understand few things which is not included, which is not included. Whatever it is taxed or levied under the GST Act, there it could be. There it could be. Now, here we will understand what is the applicability of registration under section 22, subsection 1. Every supplier of goods, service, both is required to obtain registration. Every supplier who supplies the goods or service or both, then he is doing business in any state, UT, wherever he makes the taxable supply, from wherever he is making the taxable supply, then if his aggregate turnover exceeds, aggregate turnover, what is the meaning of aggregate turnover? Aggregate turnover means this, there is inclusion and exclusion. Inclusion, all taxable supplies will be included. To find out the aggregate turnover, aggregate turnover. Exempted supply, as I already said, what is the meaning of exempted supply? Only exempted, nil rated and non taxable. And export of goods, service or both. Interstate supply of a person having a same pan. All these are included in the aggregate turnover. What is excluded? The exclusion is CGST, SGST, UTGST, IGST or any cess, any GST you imposed, that is not included. Value of inward supply on which tax is payable under RCM. For this I will give one example. You have supplied the supply service to the recipient, supplied service to the recipient. 1 lakh is the value. 1 lakh is the value worth. And what is the GST? 18% of GST your recipient should pay. The should be included in the supply of the turnover of the recipient turnover. So this you should include in the recipient turnover or the supplier turnover. Then you should not include, this should not be included in the supplier turnover. The whatever RCM the supplier supplied the recipient 1 lakh, that 18,000 whatever you have paid, that should not be included in the supplier invoice. That is inward supply on tax payable under RCM. Why we are discussing this aggregate turnover? Because under section 22, every supplier is liable for the registration. Every supplier is liable for the registration when he exceeds aggregate turnover, is exceeds the specified threshold limit. See, let us understand this threshold limit in easy way. What is this threshold limit? Threshold limit for registration. Threshold limit for registration. First, you have to check this condition. What is the first condition? Whether the taxable supply from taxable supply from MMNT, MMNT, year, supply of goods, supply of service or supply of both when taken place. You can ask what is MMNT? That is Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura. Then your threshold limit is 10 lakh. What is your threshold limit? Threshold limit is 10 lakh. taxable supply from MMNT. What is MMNT? Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura. Then your threshold limit will be 10 lakh. If you exceed this threshold limit, then you will become person liable for registration. Liable for registration. Then second condition. First, you have checked you are not a taxable supply from MMNT. Then you have to check whether you are a taxable taxable supply from supply from AMS UPT UPT AMS UPT. What is this AMS UPT? You can ask. That means Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Sikkim, Uttarakhand, Puducherry, Telangana. Then if you are involved in supply of goods, supply of service, or supply of both, then the threshold limit will be 20 lakh. What is your threshold limit? Threshold limit will be 20 lakh. Now, first condition you have checked. You are not belong to MMNT, Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura. Your second condition also you have checked. Again, you are not involved in the Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Sikkim, then Uttarakhand, Puducherry, Telangana. Now, in the other cases, in other cases, again we have classified into two. Other cases you have classified into two. Exclusively involved in the supply of goods. Exclusively engaged in the supply of goods. Then you can enjoy a threshold limit of 40 lakh. This is called enhanced threshold limit. But there are certain exemptions subjected to exceptions. Exceptions are there. We'll see what are those exceptions. Then, if you are including supply of service or supply of service goods, both, then again your threshold limit will be 40 lakh. If your threshold limit exceeds, then you will become liable for registration. Is it clear? What is the threshold limit for registration? This is easy table, you can understand. When your taxable supply is from Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura, you are involved in the supply of goods, supply of service, or supply of both, then your threshold limit will be 10 lakh. If it is exceed, you will become a liable for registration. If you are not, first condition is not fulfilled, you are not involved in these four states, then taxable supply from, you have to check from these six states. What is this six states? Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Sikkim, Uttarakhand, Puducherry, Telangana. If you are involved in supply of goods, supply of service, or supply of both, then your threshold limit will be 20 lakh. If you are not involved in first also, MMNT also, and AMS UPT also, then in other cases, this is classified into two. If you are exclusively involved, engaged in the supply of goods only, engaged in the supply of goods only, you are not making any supply of service, you are not making any supply of service, then you have a enhanced threshold limit of 40 lakh. Now, supply of service or supply of both goods and service, then your threshold limit will be 40 lakh. See here, you can see person exclusively engaged in the supply of goods. See, it is a circular, it has been given Exempted, any person is exclusively engaged in the supply of goods and whose aggregate turnover will be financial year does not exceed the 40 lakh. Now, exceptions I said. What are those exceptions, ma'am? You can ask me. Person required to take a compulsory registration under section 24. That person should required to take a compulsory registration under section 24. Person engaged in the making supply of, here you can see making supply. Here if you read this, ice cream and other edible ice, whether or not containing cocoa, pan masala, all goods of chapter 24, tobacco and manufacturing tobacco substitutes, fly ash bricks, fly ash aggregates, fly ash blocks, bricks of fossil mills, or similar siliceous earths, building bricks, earthen or roofing tiles. See, these are all the items which you are involved in this exception. You will not get this option. Okay, and if any person is making intrastate supply in state like Uttarakhand, Puducherry, Meghalaya, Arunachal Pradesh, Telangana, Sikkim, and special category states as per this section 22. We have seen these 6 states and 4 states. You are involved in that, you need to check, then you are not eligible. Then interstate supply of goods are liable for the compulsory registration under section 24. And person who has opted for voluntary registration or such registration person who is intended to continue with their registration under section CGST Act. These are the exceptions under the case of getting threshold enhanced threshold limit of 40 lakh when you are exclusively engaged in the supply of goods. Now, one service you can provide whenever you are engaged only in the supply of goods, still you can provide one service. What is that one service? That is, you can provide loans, advances, deposits, whatever interest you will get, no, whatever interest you will get, no, that will be considered. You can engage, that will be considered. And any business person only engaged in supply of goods, excess of money whatever he have, that he can do loan, deposits, interest, and they will be given the relaxation. You have got the relaxation. Now, registration in the other cases. Registration in the other cases, here we have understood, no, for this 4 states it is 10 lakh, for this 6 states it is 20 lakh, and only involved in the goods intrastate, then he will get the 40 lakh of with enhanced threshold limit only when he is involved in the exclusively involved in the supply of goods. Now here you can see taxable supply made from any state UT. You need to get registered under the required state or UT. Only exempted non-taxable supply made from the state or UT, you no need to get registered. Supply received in a state but not made from other, they from there no registration is required. If he is providing any temporary service other than state without fixed establishment, then no registration is required. Only license marketing office with no taxable supply, then is also no need to get registered. And threshold limit will be reduced to 10 lakh only when the taxable supply is made from the special category states. Now, registration requirement in other cases. This will be covered under section 22, subsection 2, 3, and 4. Here, if you are registered under earlier tax law, if you are registered under any other earlier tax law, every person immediate he should register or hold a license under any existing law, he shall be liable for the registered under this act, effect from the appointment date. Then on any transfer of business, succession of ownership change, or death or a sole proprietary is going concern by the registered person, transferee or a successor, he must register under section 22 subsection 3. Then on the business transfer or amalgamation demerger, in the order of court tribunal, he has to get register, he must register. Okay, then section amalgamation and demerger. Now A and B company are amalgamated and become A B limited, then they has to get registered. Now A B limited demerger become A limited and B limited. Any new structure or newly incorporated companies, they are becomes the liable for registration. Now section 24, compulsory registration in certain cases. Compulsory registration, when your aggregate turnover exceeds the applicable threshold limit, then you will be considered here. Compulsory registration for whom? Person who is making interstate taxable supply. Interstate taxable supply. There is an exception. Point B and C. Let us see the what is point B and C related to the exception. Point B. Here you can see person making interstate supply of taxable services up to 20 lakh. Up to 20 lakh. Then person making interstate supply taxable service exceeds the 20 lakh, or in case of 10 lakh for the Mizoram, Tripura, Manipur, Nagaland, then he is become the liable for registration. Then point C said that person making interstate taxable supply of notified and craft handicraft goods up to 20 lakh, then you no need to get register. See, person who is making interstate notified handcraft material, what is there are condition has been given for this. What is that condition? The condition, when you will take it as a notified handicraft goods, when the aggregate value of such supplier, if you compute all India basis, all India basis, it is less than or equal to 20 lakh. Okay, and such person will have obtained the PAN and have generated the, he should generate the e-way bill. He should generate the e-way bill. Then notified product, which have been notified craftsman, predominantly by hand, predominantly is using the hand, even though some machinery may also be used in the process. This will be exceptional case. Exception has been given for this too. No need to get registered. Compulsory registration. Then casual taxable person making taxable supply. See, exception is given under rule section 23 to point D. Let us see what is point D. Section 23 to point D. CTP. CTP means casual taxable person. So what is casual taxable person? Now, casual taxable person means here you are not belongs to now Karnataka. Your business is there in Tamil Nadu. You are coming for a exhibition. You are coming for a exhibition. So then you need to get registered. They will tell registration is compulsory. For exhibition you are coming, but your permanent business in Tamil Nadu, but still you have to get registration. But there are some exceptional case. What is that? CTP making interstate taxable supply below you are exempted from registration. Notified handicraft goods. Handicraft goods. and notified products when they are made from the craftsman and they are predominantly using the and conditions what are need to be fulfilled. The CTP must avail the benefit of the notification which have been given earlier, okay, which is dated, notification dated. Then aggregate value of such supply, it is computed all India basis. It is less than or equal to 20 lakh. In case of Mizoram, Tripura, it is 10 lakh. Such person have obtained a PAN and have a generated e-way bill. He should generate the e-way bill, then he no need to get compulsory registration. Yes, next, person who are required to pay tax under reverse charge in on inward supply received, reverse charge inward supply received, exception point A, ref 23 to point A, person making only reverse charge supply. Here I will take example of advocate. Now advocate provide legal services to the business entity. Advocate provide legal service to the business entity. Who is recipient here? The business entity is the recipient. 18,000. So business entity is coming under the compulsory registration. Compulsory registration. And advocate is the supplier. It is a outstanding supply. It is an outstanding supply and exempted to take the registration even though aggregate turnover exceeds. Even though aggregate turnover exceeds. And person making only reverse charge supply, he is ailing the reverse charge mechanism, but he is providing the outstanding supply of service. Then even though his aggregate turnover exceeds, is not liable for the registration. And fourth, non-resident taxable person, NRTP making a taxable supply, he is not belongs to India NRTP, so is not, is has to get registered under the NRTP. Example, IPL players we can take. They don't have a fixed place of business in India, but they are coming for the 2 months, 3 months duration. You can see only Indians are not there. Foreign players are also there, right? So what they have to do? They have to do compulsory registration, and for the work they are coming, they'll complete the work and they will go back. For that, they need to pay. Now, e-commerce. Every e-commerce is required to collect tax at source under section 52. And e-commerce will required to pay tax on notified services under section 9 subsection 5. Person whose supply of goods or services other than notified under section 9 subsection 5 through such e-commerce is required to collect TCS. The e-commerce should get registered. And what is the exception? Exceptions are given. Exception is refer 23 subsection 2 point E and F related to e-commerce. Let us see E and F. Person making supply of services through e-commerce other than specified under section 9 subsection 5 with the aggregate turnover up to 20 lakh. Part and parcel. See, if, e-commerce if you take, it is the part and parcel of our daily life. Subsequent chapter we are going to discuss about this. And supply, who is making the supply of goods, supply of services through e-commerce is also required for the registration. And there are exceptional services that is not considered under the compulsory registration. And any tax is deducted under section 51, under section 51. 51 will not be considered. Then section, person is required to deduct under tax under section 51 separately registered under this act, then he has to make compulsory registration. Then person who make taxable supply of goods or services or both on behalf of other taxable person, he is an agent or otherwise. If you are a taxable supply you are doing on behalf of the principal, agent should get registered. Agent should get registered. A principal is a registered person. On behalf of principal, agent is doing the business and agent has to get registered. If principal is a taxable person, then agent should make if agent is making exempted supply, you will not be liable for the compulsory registration. You are not liable for the compulsory registration. Is it clear? If your principal is registered person but he involved in the exempted supply, then you will not come under the compulsory registration. Agent, if you are doing a taxable supply, principal is a non-taxable person, then no need to get registered. And agent becomes compulsory for agent, it becomes compulsory registration by fulfilling the two conditions. What are those two conditions? The agent should make the taxable supply. Agent should make the taxable supply on behalf of a taxable principal. Okay. Then every person supplying online information and database access on retrieval services from place outside India to a person in India other than a registered person. Netflix, Amazon Prime are best example for this. They have to get registered. Then in person then input service distributor, whether or not separately registered under the CGST Act. If he is a input service distributor, then he has to get compulsory registration. Every person who is supplying online money, gaming from one place to outside India, he has to get registered. Any other person or a class person he is notified by the government on the recommendation of the council, then he has to pay the registration. Okay. Then here we will see some of the person who are not liable for registration. Who are not liable for registration. Section 23 subsection 1 has given the list of who are not liable for registration. Person who is engaged exclusively in the business of supplying of goods or services, not liable to tax, only exempted from tax. As I already said, petrol, charitable trust, see, they all are exempted. So they are only exempted. They are not listed under the GST. So no need to get registered. An agriculturist, to the extent of supply of produce out of cultivation of land. Out of cultivation of land. So who is called as agriculturist? Defined under section 2 subsection 7. Individual HUF who are undertaken the cultivation of land e- by own labor or by labor of family or by servant on wages payable in cash or kind or by hired labor. See example, the group of people come together, two three people, and they formed a partnership firm, they started agriculture, then it is not called as a agricultural business. Is it clear? Then we have section 23 subsection 2. We have already discussed about the person making only reverse charge mechanism. This we have discussed already. This EF liability for registered service provided by commission agent as per the APMC Act for sale of purchase of agricultural produce. He has to get liable for the registration. Now, procedure for registration. Procedure for registration under section 25, 26, and 27. What time limit you need to apply for the registration? And when you becomes liable for registration under the section 22 or under section 24, that we are going to understand now. Person who is liable to register under section 22 or 24, where he has to get registered in every such state where he is, which he is liable for the pay the GST, whether he is liable for any particular state or UT, he has to get registered. When he has to get registered, within the 30 days, when he becomes liable for registration, within the 30 days from the date which he becomes the liable for registration, that he has to make. Now, any a CTP or NRTP, CTP or NRTP, for them time is not given. They has to get registration at least 5 days prior to the commencement of the business. Before commencement of the business, they have to get registered. And person making supply from territorial water of India, if he is making supply from territorial water of India in that coastal state or UT, wherever the nearest point to the baseline, wherever the nearest point to the baseline, 12 nautical miles, you have to remember, within the 30 days from the date of which he becomes the liable for registration. And application for the registration should be filled electronically in the common portal GST registration 1. Procedure for registration 25, 26, and 27. Now, state-wise registration. State-wise registration. Section 25, subsection 2, where with the rule 11 we are going to read. Now, here one registration per state. One registration only you can get for the per state. Okay. State wise registration. If it is not centralized, business with branches of multiple state must obtain the separate registration for the each state. If you have your branches in Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, then each state you have to get the separate registration. Within a single state, an entity is granted one registration and one principal place of business will be taken, and other branches as the additional place of business. Other places will be considered as the additional place of business. Okay. Yes. Then separate registration for the different places of business within a state or UT may be granted. If it is in a separate different places, then you have to get a separate registration for this. Then compensation levy in case of separate registration in the multiple place of business. See, if a person is paying tax under normal scheme one place, then he cannot opt for the compensation levy in the another place. As I already said, see, you have a branches, one branch you can't say that compensation levy you will pay in one branch and other branches you will go for a regular scheme. No, it is not possible. If one branch you are coming under compensation levy, then all other branches will come under compensation levy only. Or one branch, if you are regular scheme you are using, all other branches you are good doing regular business only. Okay. Yes, regular scheme only. That is compulsory. This what is compensation levy, that we are going to understand detail in the upcoming video. Voluntary registration, section 25 subsection 3. Voluntary registration is if any person is liable for registration under section 22. What is section 22 says? When you are doing a taxable supply and when you exit the aggregate turnover limit. Or 24, compulsory registration, you may opt for voluntary registration, then you must comply with the provisions and you have to pay the tax turnover below the threshold limit. If you are doing a voluntary registration, the threshold limit is not applicable to you because you have come and approached the government. You have registered yourself voluntarily. So there is no threshold limit applicable to you. You have to pay tax. Destinate person, establishment of destinate person. Section 25, subsection 4 and 5. Here, multiple registration if you have in one or more states, and you will be treated as a distinct person. So, when you will be treated as a distinct person, when you have a multiple registration, you have in state A also, state B also, under same PAN but different registration number, you will be treated as a distinct person. And when person you have obtained or required to obtain registration in state or UT, establishment of an establishment in another state or UT, then that establishment will be treated as the establishment of distinct person. Establishment of distinct person. Continuation of procedure for registration, section 25, 26, and 27. PAN must obtain for the registration. PAN is compulsory for the registration. Without PAN, you will not be registered. So, PAN is compulsory. Only for the NRTP will be granted registration on the basis of prescribed document. That prescribed document is called as UIN. What is UIN? Is United Nation Organization. United Nation Organization, they will get a unique identity number. Unique identity number. Why they will get unique identity number? See, now they have US embassies there in India. They will do services, outstanding services, right? Outstanding services that will be exempted from the tax, and they will do inward supply also. Inward supply also. For that, they might pay GST. They might pay GST. With the help of this unique identity number, they will get UIN, this number. This is centralized UIN. So for all the states wherever they are doing the business, the same number is applicable. They can refund. They can refund the GST whatever they have paid. When you are become liable for registration but not registered for registration, then here procedure for proper officer in certain cases. What are those certain cases? When you are become liable for registration, they will send you a enquiry, inspection, or any other proceedings from the proper officer, PO. Then if we finds, then person liable for registration, you become a liable for registration. Your threshold limit is exit, but you are not registered, failed to apply for such registration, then you will get a temporary registration order. Temporary registration order, this will be issued under the prescribed form. Then the person whom the temporary registration form order has been issued, such person, he can accept or he can deny. If he is submitting application for registration prescribed within the 90 days, within the 90 days from the date of grant of temporary registration, he has to submit the application. If he is denying, then he can go for appeal against such temporary registration. In case if the appellate authority upholds liability to registration, then he must apply for registration within the 30 days from the date of issue of such applicate order. Within the 30 days, see, if you accept, you will get 90 days. If you deny, then court says yes, you are liable to pay registration, pay tax, then you will get the 30 days. And rule 9 and 10 shall be and apply for such application whatever they have submitted, and GST and granted shall be effective from the date of order of PO and granting the temporary registration. From when they it will the effective date of registration, when the temporary registration has been issued. Is it clear? Yes. Now, procedure for registration, section 25. We are reading with the rule 8, 9, and 10. Now, procedure given under Rule 8, 9, and 10. This will be applied for the person who is paying tax under compensation levy and who is taking the voluntary registration or casual taxable person CTP. Compensation taxpayer, voluntary registration, casual taxable person. And B, application for the registration. GST registration 1 will be divided into part A and part B, and this procedure will be laid on and will not be applied to non NRTP and person who is required to deduct tax under section 51. Person is required to collect tax at source under section 52. Person who is applied ODR service outside the India. Person supplying online money gaming from outside India, it is not applicable to them. Then facilitation center who will assist the non-IT taxpayers for submitting the application, amending the registration certificate, handling the cancellation or revocations, assistance in the application, amendment of registration certificate, cancellation, revocation. Application for registration here special economic zone, second proviso to section 25 subsection 1, and person who is having a unit in special economic zones, then developer and another unit outside the special economic zone, then same state UT must obtain for the separate registration for each as a, they'll become a distinct place of business, they'll become a distinct place of business. Procedure for registration, you need to visit GST portal, that is www.gst.government.in. You need to fill a application form, inform GST registration 1 part A, part B. You need to upload required document, submit the application, ARN will be generated, and proper officer verifies the application as per the rule 9, and information clarification you may be sorted, then registration will be approved, you will get the GSTN registration certificate. So let us understand part A and part 1 and part 2. Procedure for registration. Every person who is liable to get registered and person who is wants to take voluntary registration, before applying the registration he has to declare the permanent account number, PAN number, mobile number, email address, state, UT. Part A in the form GST registration 1. He has to verify his PAN, mobile number, email address. If it is validated, the PAN will be validated online by the common portal CBDT database. Mobile number and email address will be verified with the one time password. Then temporary reference number will be generated for the communication of the applicant. Then using the temporary reference number, electronically he can submit the application part B with the specified document. So let us see the what is part B. The application, after applying this, the application will be forwarded to the proper officer. Now, the proper officer examines the application by accompanying the document. If he is satisfied with the document, whatever you have submitted, the proper officer will generate the registration certificate GST registration 6 within the 7 working days. Within the 7 working days. How many days? Within the 7 working days. If you are well and good, all the documents are properly updated, then you will get a registration within the 7 working days. Or within the, if your Aadhaar is not verified, if your Aadhaar is not verified, if Aadhaar is verified within the 7 working days, if you are not Aadhaar to taken time to verify, then within the 30 days of the application, after verification of the site, you will get the registration number. If no, If whatever the document you have submitted is not satisfied, then the proper officer will issue a notice electronically within 7 working days from the application submission date. This clarification you have to give, or with notice may be issued not later than 30 days from the application submission date in case the person fails to undergo Aadhaar authentication, does not is not opted for Aadhaar authentication. If the applicant whatever he has furnished documents are given again, he has re-uploaded the document and information 7 working days from the recipient of notice. If it is yes, it is proper. If with your answer the PO is satisfied, then the proper officer is satisfied, then he will issue GST registration 6. He will grant the registration certificate within the 7 working days from the date of recipient of information. If no, then the proper officer will reject your application. The proper officer will reject your application. Then, deemed approval of application. If PO fails to take any action in the following case within the stipulated time, then you'll be granted registration deemed to have been approved. In case other than those covered above, what are those? Within the period of 7 working days from the date of submission of the application, in case where the PO officer seeking clarification, information, documentation from the applicant within the 7 working days. Other authentication is there. How they will authenticate your other, the details are there. So go through once. If you want any study material, you can message me in the comment section. I will share you. Then furnishing the bank account details. Registered person within the 30 days of the registration or before filing the GSTR1, he has to furnish the bank account details. Then physical verification of business premises. In certain cases, physical verification after registration, the PO will complete the registration within the 15 working days. And physical verification before registration, rule 9 subsection 1 also it is there. Then issuance of registration or registration certificate. See your GST number format will be, you will have state code, in which state you have registered, that state code, your PAN number, entity code, your entity code, and check some character will be there. 2 digit of code of the state or UT, PAN number, entity code, 1 digit for legal entity, 4 digit number, and check some character, one alphanumeric character will be there. That is your GSTN format. Display of registration certificate. You have to display your registered certificate GST on the name board under rule 18. Name board you have to display, and wherever your branches are there you have to display the GST registration number. Then effective date of registration. Effective date of registration. If here applicant submit the application for registration within the 30 days from the date of person becomes liable for registration, then date on which person becomes liable for registration. Example I will give you. 15th Jan 5th Jan you become liable for registration. 30th Jan you have submitted the application, and 25th Feb you got certificate of from the government. Then 5th Jan becomes your date of effective date of registration. If after 30 days from the date of person become liable for registration, 5th Jan you are become liable for registration. 10th Feb you applied for registration, application you have submitted. 25th Feb you got the registration grant. Then the effective date becomes date of grant of registration. Then special provision for registration in case of NRTP and CTP. Section 25 and 27. You are reading with the rule 13 and 15. Casual taxable person. Casual taxable person. Here he is coming occasionally. As I already said, he is not regularly coming, occasionally, because of exhibition. Excuse me. Because of exhibition or any course of business on behalf of principal is coming for business, then he cannot exercise option for compensation levy. He is not compensation levy is not applicable to him. Non-resident taxable person, section 2 subsection 27. Any person occasionally undertakes transaction, he cannot exercise for option of compensation levy. Special registration provision for the casually taxable person, that is CTP and NRTP. CTP and NRTP, yeah, they have to get must registration under the compulsory registration at least 5 days before the commencement of the business. They won't get any time. And CTP registration, PAN based field form GST registration 1. NRTP registration, as I already said, they'll get a UIN number, unique number of home country, and PAN if available. Individual self-attested passport or applicable application duly signed, EVC verified authorized Indian resident or signatory with the PAN, they have to submit. Period of validity of registration certificate granted to CTP or NRTP. How many days? This limitation is there. Here, period specified for the registration of application and 90 days from the effective date of registration. Whichever is early will be considered. Advance deposit of tax. See, while submitting the registration application of CTP or NRTP, they have to take advance tax deposit, and it is equivalent to the estimated tax liability of that person. Temporary reference number will be issued for making this deposit. Advance tax deposit must be contain eligible ITC, only available to the CTP. Time extension, additional deposit estimated liability extended period will be required. Deemed registration, section 26. Registration is not tax specific, single registration. This covers CGST, SGST, UTGST, IGST, cess. Registration, if you have UN is granted, then registration under SGST, UTGST deemed to be granted under CGST Act unless rejected. Rejection of registration under UN, under SGST, UTGST, rejected under SGST or UTGST Act, deemed to be rejected under section UGST Act, sorry, CGST Act. Special provision grant of registration in case of person required to be deduct tax at source under section 51, or to collect tax at source under section 52 rule. If TDS or TCS is collected, then person is required to get registered under TDS or TCS. He must submit application in the different prescribed form on the GST common portal. Registration will be granted within 3 working days after the verification. And if TCS and TDS is registered under state or UT without physical presence, applicant must mention the state or UT in the part A of the form. Then state or UT principal place of business, and he must mention in the part B. If state UT is part A or part B of the form may differ, then it is not, both are not same, state UT, TCS and TDS registration part B. Then proper officer is satisfied with a request, he will inquire or proceed the person, or no, if he is no longer liable for TDS or TCS under section 51 or 52. Then cancellation of registration will be communicated electronically. Officer shall follow the cancellation procedure as per the CGST Act. Then section 28, amendment of registration. Amendment of registration. You will be identified with a field whatever details there in the registration certificate, that will have a two field, core field and non-core field. So core field and non-core field. What is core field? Core field is name of the business or without changes in the PAN, additional declaration of stakeholders. Non-core field means other fields are like name, day-to-day functionaries, email IDs, mobile number, etc. If you want to change this, then what is the procedure? Procedure for amendment. Amendment section 28. See, if it is a non-core area, then non-core area, no problem. Amendment will be carried out by the GST common portal and GST certificate will be amended. If it is a core area, if it is a core area, then you need to submit application within the 15 days of change in the GST common portal. If PO officer opinion is amendment unwarranted or document whatever you have furnished, if it is incomplete or incorrect, if it is correct or incorrect. See, if it is incorrect, then permission is to be granted within next 15 days to correct. If you are corrected, then registration certificate will be amended. If within the 15 working days your recipient of application, PO officer will issue a show cause notice. If it is no, see here, don't get confused. If submission of the application within the 15 days, if it is correct, then you will be granted within next 15 days registration of certificate of amendment. If this is, if it is no, then within 15 working days, the recipient of application, you will get a show cause notice for the application of the amendment should not be rejected. And if registration person is replies within the 7 working days, if it is yes, then again you will get a registration of certificate. If it is no, within 7 working days, a recipient of if replied, then application for the amendment shall be rejected. Application of amendment shall be rejected. See, then deemed amendment if no action taken by the proper officer within the period of 15 working days from the date of submission of the application, within the period of 7 working days date of recipient of reply to the show cause notice, then certificate of registration will stand amended for the extent of applied for, and amendment certificate and shall be available for the registered person on the common portal. Other important provisions relating to the amendment of registration, core field, it is a proper officer may approve or reject the information whatever you have provided based on the amendment taken effect from the date of occurrence of the event required to change. Non-core field, it is auto amended on the submission registration certificate update without the officer approval. Officer approval is not required for the non-core field. Officer cannot reject amendment application without giving an opportunity of being heard. He has to give opportunity of being heard, then only he can reject. Approval or rejection under SGST or UTGST Act will be deemed to be same under the CGST Act, and particulars cannot take effect earlier than the application of submission except by the commissioner's order. The reason for recorded writing and subjected to the condition will be specified. Change of PAN is not allowed. Application for the amendment of registration cannot be filled for the change in the place of business from one state to another state. You have to cancel current registration, you have to register newly. Mobile number or email address authorized signature can be amended only after the online verification through the GST portal. Now, section 29 and 30, cancellation or suspension of registration or revocation of cancellation. Cancellation of registration. Voluntary cancellation by the registered person, where registered person no more requires for the registration. In case of death of registered person, legal IRS can apply for the cancellation. Sumoto cancellation, where proper officer consider the registration in case of is not doing the business from the place of business, or issuing tax invoice without making the supply, then the proper officer can cancel your application. Circumstances where registration is liable to be cancelled under section 29 subsection 1 and 2. Circumstances are application by the registered person. If registered person may apply for the cancellation. Application by the legal heir in case of death. Okay. A sumoto or cancellation by the proper officer in case of you are doing not doing a properly business, if you are not paying the tax properly, um, quarterly, 2 months or 6 months continuously, then you will be cancelled. Fraud or willful mistreatment or super suppression, then you will be registered obtained by the fraud, then you will face the liable for cancellation. Non filling of returns. Circumstances when the proper officer can cancel the registration in his own, when you does not conduct any business from the declared place of business. If you are issue invoice bill without supply of goods or services, you are violating the act. If you violate the provision of section 171, if you violate the provision of rule 10A, if you are availing ITC and violating the section 16 of CGST Act rule made thereunder, and if you are furnished details outward supply in the form GSTR1 amended in the form GSTR1A, if under section 37 one or more tax period which is in the excess outward supply is declared by him, or valid return under section 39 for the said tax period. If you violate the provision rule 86B, if you violate the provision third or fourth provision of rule 23(1), if you are required to file a return under section 39(1) each month or a part thereof, required to file a return under the provision of under section 39(1) each quarter or part thereof, then your cancellation can be ordered from such date as a proper officer may deem fit, and proper officer will give opportunity of being heard before cancelling the registration. I hope all of you understood the registration. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Practice makes perfect, and conceptually being clear is most important. Understand the concept, then you can apply it practically. I hope all of you understood. Thank you for watching.